Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video. She is not feeling well today. She has whatever I had last week or the week before, so she might not be in the next couple videos. You're stuck with me. I'm sorry if I made her sick. I apologize in advance. We're going to go out to this article on The Atlantic. It's called the Hogwarts Legacy Boycott that wasn't. It basically is admitting that the Hogwarts Legacy Boycott was a non-starter. It was a complete failure. In some cases, it actually had the opposite effect. It actually sold more copies. Basically, everything that we have said, that this was such a non-issue and that gaming journos, they admit gaming journos live in a bubble and they're not in touch with reality. So we're going to talk about this as kind of a post-mortem to the Hogwarts Legacy situation. Have to give a hat tip to Cinder Shadow, who sent this over to me yesterday. It's a pretty interesting read. I suggest you go out and read it yourself on The Atlantic. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We do talk about video games. We've been talking about Hogwarts Legacy and all the drama around Hogwarts Legacy because some game journos don't like J.K. Rowling because of her Twitter views and her views on feminism and her views on what women are. They don't like her because of that, because it's not trendy current year. And yeah, so there was a call from some gaming journos to boycott Hogwarts Legacy. There was a website put up to track down Twitch streamers who were streaming Hogwarts Legacy. There were streamers who were threatened, doxxed, and intimidated for playing this game. And the boycott did absolutely nothing. If anything, it just helped sell more copies, and that's what The Atlantic is talking about. So they said the public response to the game was truly a referendum on J.K. Rowling. She won. She absolutely did win in this case. They said Hogwarts Legacy was released in February. The verdict from video game sites was close to unanimous. The spin-off of the Harry Potter series was a heartless mess. No, bullshit. The product of a bigoted worldview, and playing it involved an uncomfortable act of moral compromise. Or at least holding your nose and reassuring yourself that J.K. Rowling was not directly involved. No, that's not actually true. The gaming journos that dared to fairly review the game actually gave it a pretty good review. The game's not perfect, but they said it's actually pretty good. Wired gave it a 1 out of 10. Yes, because it was an activism virtue signal. It wasn't a legit review. British outlet Rock Paper Shotgun pointedly reviewed games by trans developers instead. The Mary Sue reported on an alleged fan boycott. Even the walkthroughs, those helpful guides telling players how to solve the game's puzzles and defeat its bosses, carried panic disclaimers. On numerous occasions in recent years, billionaire and Harry Potter creator J.K. Rowling has taken public stances against trans people. That was on the Polygon Guide. GameSpot warned its readers in an apologetic tone that the game has been embroiled in controversy. The headline of an Axios article by the former Kotaku editor Stephen Totillo even declared that Hogwarts Legacy had become a referendum on the author. If so, the votes are in. J.K. Rowling wins by a landslide. The views she has expressed on Twitter and elsewhere, for instance, that women's spaces such as prisons and domestic violence shelters should be protected on the basis of biological sex rather than something gender, are clearly not fatally repulsive to normie consumers. What is really interesting about this article and about this take is The Atlantic, which is a pretty progressive publication, is basically saying that video game journalists are completely out of touch with where consumers actually are, and that it was a tempest in a teapot, something that they created whole cloth because in their circles, it is one of the most important things to them. You know, J.K. Rowling and turfdom and trans rights and all that stuff. To them, it's important. To the average consumer picking up a copy of this game at Walmart, they do not care. They do not care. In fact, most people were probably not even aware that there was any controversy about this game at all. Hogwarts Legacy sold more than 12 million copies in the first 2 weeks, even though it's not yet available for older consoles. Yeah, just wait till it hits Switch and Xbox One and PS4. Den of Geek conceded in an article preceded by an italicized warning about Rowling's history of transphobic remarks. You always have to do that. You can't just review the game. You have to be like, well, just so you know, she's a transphobe. Those sales generated more than $850 million in revenue. Let me put that number in perspective. John Wick Chapter 4 just had what is generally considered to be an excellent box office opening weekend, $73.5 million. The financial success of Hogwarts Legacy is many times greater. At the same time, it became the game with the most concurrent streams on Twitch, even though some Twitch streamers were harassed for playing it. The success of Hogwarts Legacy follows the pattern of other recent J.K. Rowling projects, which are still hits despite her alleged outcast status. The London run of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child just extended to March next year, and the play is also running in New York, Tokyo, Melbourne, Toronto, and Hamburg. Rowling's crime novels, written under the pseudonym Robert Galbraith, have all been bestsellers in Britain. Everyday long lines form outside the Harry Potter shop at King's Cross. The only Rowling property that's struggling is the Fantastic Beasts movie franchise. What's going on? The most obvious explanation is the emergence of a class of internet critics who are completely out of touch with their audiences. Let me reread that. The most obvious explanation is the emergence of a class of internet critics who are completely out of touch with their audiences. This dynamic isn't unique to video games. In recent years, I've become a student of what I think is of the Rotten Tomatoes split, but it is definitely more prevalent, I think, in video games, in gaming culture. They talk about how Hannah Gadsby had this 100% critical score with her show, but Dave Chappelle just knocked it out of the park. He only got 40% with critic, 95 with audiences, and he got like ridiculous money thrown at him for more specials. The explanation for this gulf's persistence is simple. Much of the current divergence between elite discourse and popular preference can be reduced to a simple heuristic. Most critics are on Twitter. Most consumers are not. Wait, what? Most critics are on Twitter. Most consumers are not. My Atlantic colleague, Yair Rosenberg, argued last year, just as most people do not watch CNN and have no idea what's in President Biden's proposed Build Back Better Act, most people are not even aware of J.K. Rowling's tweeted views on transgender topics, let alone have had those views color their engagement with her writing. Yes, most people do not care. And even if they were aware of it, a lot of normies would agree with her. That's the truth. You don't have to like it, but that is the truth. It has done nothing to her. The only people who are outraged by J.K. Rowling are the Twitterati and the journalists who live on Twitter. And even now, people are turning against Twitter. These people are turning against Twitter because Elon Musk owns it. Because political takes go viral more easily than aesthetics assessments do, we end up with rafts of commentary on whether an artwork is problematic. This is so... Basically, they can't understand it. Basically, the plebs decided that Hogwarts Legacy was going to be a hit. The plebs, if they were just more educated, if they were just on Twitter more often. The difference in the treatment of Hogwarts Legacy and Rowling from any other blockbuster game is instructive because it demonstrates that trans issues have become the #1 progressive touchstone among Gen Z, in particular its nerdier fandoms. If that were the case, it wouldn't have sold 12 million copies. 12 million copies. $850 million in revenue. I guarantee you Gen Z bought a lot of Hogwarts Legacy. Oh my God, they bring up Gamergate and the right-wingers with the Gamergate, and they were against Rowling's actual stated views as a left-wing British feminist, and they hold her responsible for all this stuff, and blah, 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 blah. The treatment of Hogwarts Legacy reflects my own experience of writing about gender being dismissed by, oh, for fuck's sake. Basically, they can't stand it. Here, let's just jump to the end. This is, oh my God, they're quoting Stacey Henley of The Gamer again. As long as you support Harry Potter, regardless of how hateful and deliberately malicious J.K. Rowling's statements become, you're saying trans people just don't matter as much as fictional wizards, wrote The Gamer's Stacey Henley ahead of the launch. And the BBC had to apologize. I want to reiterate, the BBC had to apologize for letting Stacey Henley run at the mouth on a radio broadcast or a podcast because Stacey Henley was making very defamatory remarks about J.K. Rowling. They literally had to apologize to J.K. Rowling on behalf of Stacey Henley. So I want to put that in there. That's one possibility. Or it might be that activists trapped in their critical bubbles have failed to make the case for Harry Potter's untouchable status to the general public. Hogwarts Legacy is a huge success. The attempt to force a consensus that J.K. Rowling is a bigot, however, has been a miserable failure. Actually, what happened was people looked at how activists were behaving like fucking lunatics during this Hogwarts Legacy situation, that they were attacking streamers who didn't have a dog in the fight. They just wanted to play the wizard game. They were doxing people, harassing people, stalking people, threatening people. They looked at that and they're like, fuck you. We're going to play the game and you're not going to tell us what to do. So, I mean, it could be argued that activists actually hurt their own cause more by the idiocy around Hogwarts Legacy. And now going forward, people might just ignore them completely because they'll be like, hey, you guys were acting like a bunch of freaking nut jobs over a fucking wizard video game, and you're threatening and harassing people, and now we're not going to listen to you anymore. We're not going to listen to you anymore. Whatever you have to say about J.K. Rowling, we don't care. We do not care. In fact, I'm going to go buy 5 more copies just to spite you because you guys are ridiculous. That's my takeaway from it. The general public doesn't care. And the weird thing is, again, this, you want to talk about Bubble, and I've mentioned it many times before. She makes way more money from Universal, way more money from Lego than she's going to make off of Hogwarts Legacy. But that's the thing that these gaming journos were hyper-focused on because that is the thing they thought they could control. And as we found out, they have jack shit, nothing, fuck all influence over actual gamers. So you pair this up with the fact that all these gaming websites are laying people off, laying journalists off, and it doesn't look very good for them because they're going to look at this and be like, yeah, you guys were in lockstep. You made this big deal about Hogwarts Legacy and it actually sold more copies. Apparently nobody's really reading your blogs. They don't really care what your opinions are, and they're going to do the opposite anyway. So why are we paying you? Nobody's listening to you anyway. If I were a marketer and I were trying to market my game, I'd be like, obviously gamers aren't listening to what these bloggers have to say. So why pay the ad rates to advertise on these sites when nobody's paying attention? Nobody cares, right? They just want to play the wizard game. So I'm going to wrap this up. Very interesting stuff. I can't wait until it hits Switch and PS4. It's going to blow up then too, and we're going to see another round of nonsense. I can almost guarantee it. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later. Help support the channel. Go to thereef.support and get early access to podcasts, videos, and other content. That's thereef.support.